Today, I'm sitting down with Dan Naus, co-owner of Perspective Brewing, located in West Dallas. Thank you for taking the time to sit down with me today. How
Yeah,
you doing?
I'm doing great. Yeah, I'm happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
I appreciate it, Dan.
Yeah.
Before we get into your business, I want to spend the time to get to know you.
Mm-hmm.
Tell me about where you're from and a little bit about yourself.
All right. Well, I'm relatively local to this area. I'm from Racine, born in Milwaukee, raised in Racine. Went through grade school, high school in Racine. Went to college up in Milwaukee at UWM, where I was a biology major. So I was a science guy prior to this career. And so I have a couple brothers, older and younger. And my parents are all still in the area. And now I have a wife and a daughter and one on the way. So that's me in the nutshell there.
What's your experience being the middle child?
The typical middle child. I'm always forgotten, just kidding. This nothing really crazy being the middle child. I always got along with my family, like brothers, got along. They've been, never gotten huge fights or anything like that. So nothing crazy with the middle child syndrome.
Who helped shape the person you became today? Is there any, were you always an entrepreneur growing up?
I don't think I was. I think that came more later on in life. When I was little, I guess you could ask, my parents always tell me this, when I was real little in kindergarten, the early grade school years, I was really shy. Like my mom tells me the story that my kindergarten teacher didn't even know that like I could talk sometimes because I was just so quiet and did my own thing. I was well behaved and everything, but just didn't talk. But I think the entrepreneurial spirit in me kind of grew as I got older. So later on in high school, I started coming out of my shell and started, kind of paving my own way. And I think that all came later in life as opposed to earlier. I definitely wouldn't have guessed, I was the grade school kid that was saying, I'm going to be a professional basketball player, that kind of thing. Never, I was going to open my own business. That was definitely later.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Before we get into your business, where did you work prior to that?
So I was a high school science teacher. Me and my older brother, who is the other co-owner of Perspective, we were both high school science teachers. I taught for 12 years. He taught for longer than that. But yeah, coming from the science background, it's kind of a seamless move into the brewing aspect, right?
For sure.
Instead of just teaching about science, we're doing the actual practical science now, which is kind of a cool transition. We didn't fully give up all the stuff from our past career. We're just put into application now. So,
yeah, it's awesome.
Yeah.
What sparked that idea?
So, what sparked the brewery is that kind of coming from our previous careers. So it was me and my brother, Ben, and both science teachers, both worked together at the same school. And we need something to do in the summers because our friends all, worked regular day jobs in the summer. And as teachers, we had, Monday through Friday off. So we decided to pick up this hobby that we could do together. We both like beer. So, hey, let's brew our own beer. So we kind of just did it as a hobby at first. We homebrewed. We started with extract. So, we bought kind of like the kits. And then we got, more excited about it. So obviously our collection of brewing equipment kept building and building. And then finally, this was about 7 years ago now. We were both teaching at the same school. And we were kind of getting burnt out, as a lot of teachers are, with the actual teaching part and all the stuff that goes along with teaching. And they were playing for us this video. It was Kid President on YouTube at the very beginning of the year. It was professional development, and they're trying to pump the teachers up, like, hey, you guys, inspire the kids to follow their dreams. They can do anything they want. And me and my brother left on that lunch period after watching that video, and we kind of looked at each other like, we can. Like, yeah, our kids can, but we can too. Let's do what we want to do with our life. So we,
That's awesome.
Over that lunch period, we kind of made the decision, like, let's take this serious. Let's work our way to opening this brewery. So that was I can pinpoint the moment, at least for me, that was the spark into, hey, let's do this thing. And here we are 7 years later, we have our brewery.
Can you walk me through the process of choosing a location? Was there, I know you're in West Dallas, but was there any other areas you considered?
Yeah, so building into our business model, we knew we wanted to be in the suburbs of Milwaukee, and we didn't want to be like in Walker's Point in the east side where there already is a good collection of breweries. We knew we wanted to hit that suburban outskirts of Milwaukee area. So initially, when I had come back from Colorado, that's where we started looking. We looked anywhere within 20-mile radius surrounding Milwaukee. So we had looked south, or mostly southwest, not so much north. But we looked at South Milwaukee, we looked at Oak Creek, we looked at Franklin, New Berlin, and some of those other smaller locations. And we ended up landing in West Dallas because through the process of all this, hey, we want to be in a suburb. Whenever we found a space that we liked, we'd go to the city level. So we'd say, hey, send a message over to City Hall and say, hey, we're thinking about opening a brewery. What sort of help could you give us? What sort of, are we going to be a good fit? And no one was anti-brewery, I should say, but there was definitely more, I guess, support we could feel from other, certain locations. But when we had talked to West Dallas, it was like, whoa, we told them, hey, we're thinking about opening a brewery here. And it was like, we'll do anything to get you here. So right away, we know this is going to be a good fit. We liked where we are in West Dallas, or we liked the location of West Dallas because the building was about the size we wanted. It was about 1,500 square feet, but then also had a space for a back patio, which was huge. We definitely wanted patio for Wisconsin summers that everybody, tries to get in a year's worth of activity in the summer. So we got to find a place for them. And it's right on the main street. It's got built-in events with the parades and festivals that go on Greenfield Avenue where we are. And so far it's been great.
What you said that, what areas do you look at? And you mentioned Third Ward and other areas. Yeah. What other areas kind of pushed you out because there was just too much competition?
Yeah. I guess it'd be less so competition. I think having breweries to an extent in a given area works. Mm-hmm. You look at River West right now. They have the River West Brewing Syndicate where they do a free shuttle between all the 5 breweries, 5-6 breweries that are out there, and it's working for them. I think what didn't work about being downtown, Third Ward, Walker's Point, is that we wanted to be a neighborhood brewery, and for us at least, when we envisioned it, we wanted. We definitely like the support of having other breweries, but we wanted a feel of more, we're the spot that the neighborhood meets. So like downtown, you have more apartments, you have, more renters, things like that. Whereas in West Dallas, we have a lot of established homes. It's kind of, similar to Wauwatosa, we have younger families that are creeping in as well, mm-hmm. and they're buying their first homes and things like that. So we wanted more of that feel, which we thought we'd find more of in the suburbs, I guess, in the outskirts of Milwaukee. So that's how we landed there.
Can you walk me through the process of your planning the grand opening day? What were some things that went into that?
So we had 2 opening dates. I'll speak to the first one because that was the most impactful. When we opened the doors for the first time, right? So technically it was our soft opening. Okay. We didn't have our grand opening until October, where we wanted to make sure everything was running smoothly before we had our grand opening.
So our soft opening is essentially for family and friends.
Yeah. So and then our soft opening date we opened to the public as well. So we had done a lot of prep work leading up to it, but I'll speak to that. So. Leading up to our actual open the doors to the public, June 4th of last year, it was it was a process. We'll just say that we had bought our building in October of 2020. So we had a good year and a half of not only, construction, that kind of stuff. We had to get financing. We had a lot of stuff going on in that year and a half. Are we talking like closer to opening?
Yeah.
So once we'll fast forward, right? We got our construction, our permits, we got our walkthroughs, we got all the everything we needed from the city, the green light to open. So we got that in May. So for our soft opening, we had about a little over a month to get as much beer as we could brew. So the brewing process, you can push out a beer in 2 weeks if it's an ale, or quicker sometimes. But we didn't have a lot of time to actually get some beer ready. So we were brewing nonstop, trying to get as much beer as we could for our opening to the public in June, which we had set the date. There's an event in West Allis called West Allis a la carte, which is they basically shut down the street in front of the brewery, and it's they get 10,000 plus people. So that was our target to be open for that. So leading up to that, we had to brew beer. So that was number one. By the time we opened, we had 6 beers, and we're up to 12 now, but 6 was our goal. We got 6. We did very limited marketing. It was social media that we had kind of slowly built a little following, but it was more word of mouth. Like, hey, this is going to be our marketing. We're going to be open for this festival. And as people are there, like, oh, there's a brewery here now, right? So that was kind of the plan, because this was our first time even working in the service industry. So we were teachers, nurses, our wives are nurses, and we're going to like, hey, let's do this. So we, very limited marketing. We wanted to have the beer. We made sure that we had, the proper training for our POS system and everything. But basically it was trial by fire. We opened on the day before a la carte and had a really good showing, because we had done some practice nights with family and friends. So we had at least a couple nights of experience. And then that Saturday when we opened, it was crowded because we slowly just opened the doors. We didn't announce that we were open. We just opened the doors on Saturday because we had invited friends and family, and people started trickling in just from seeing that a brewery was open. And on the next day, that Sunday, was the West Allis a la carte. And that was our first stress test, because we had 10,000 plus people that were out in the street and they wanted beer. So we were there to serve them. So we survived. And
did you run out of it? Anything?
We didn't run out that day, but June and July following, we were only able to open Saturdays and Sundays because we were trying to recoup the beer that we had sold that day. So we had expected to open initially, like, oh, we're going to open this weekend, then we're going to do our Friday, Saturday, Sunday hours. But after that weekend, we're like, oh, we're only able to open Saturday, Sundays for at least this month, because we need to still brew beer and kind of, build our arsenal. So that was the opening for us.
What was your most popular beer that night?
That night, looking back at it, it was, so we didn't have a lot of specialty beers. We only had 6, and they're real simple beers. They're wheat beers that, you could turn over really quickly. I think, what still is our best-selling beer, and that day as well, was our Hefeweizen, which has become a staple. So we had initially thought this beer was going to be a seasonal beer. Hefeweizens are normally summer beers. But because it sold well from day one and still is selling really well, that's become one of our signature styles that we keep on year-round now.
What was the biggest takeaway from that event that you now apply to your company? So that's something that you learned.
I think the biggest takeaway, for me at least, is that you can do it. Like we had worked towards that for 7 years just to get the doors open. And it was a surreal day in general, especially even before that in May, when I had received the occupancy permit to open. Like, it's like, whoa, so we can just unlock the door and sell people beer now? Like, is this real? And then after that initial weekend, it was kind of like, whoa, we can do this. Like, this is, it's crazy, that we did the 6 years of planning and followed through, but we can do this. And I think that still is the takeaway even today, is that, hey, we did all this planning, we followed through, and look at us now. Like, this is our full-time gig. We're a functioning business, and we can pull off an opening a brewery when none of us had any experience in the industry, and here we are now. So it's kind of just more of a motivational takeaway that hey, if there's something that we want to do, we can do it.
Now that this is your full-time gig, what's your day-to-day like, and where's your most time spent?
So we kind of split up. So it's me and my brother. This is our full-time jobs. We left teaching for this. But we split up the roles. So a day-to-day for me looks a little bit different than my brother's. But Monday, Tuesdays, the tap room's closed. So as a brewery, Mondays are brew days. So that's my older brother's big day. It's where he brews the beer, along with my sister-in-law helps as well for like making our seltzers, which are super popular. And so that's when the beer is made. Tuesday and Monday is my day, typically at home, where I'm working on accounting stuff, bookkeeping, taxes, payroll, things that I do, social media posts, emails, that kind of stuff. That's my work day from home on the computer. Tuesdays, me and my brother overlap, so that's our work day in the brewery. So besides brewing, there's now even more stuff than before, but that's where, like, I'm coming from today. I was cleaning kegs this morning. We are, my older brother's making our NA options, so working on the sodas, cold brew coffee. We're cleaning the brewery. We are hand canning. We are, doing manual labor stuff that can't really do at home. And then Wednesday, it's showtime. So Wednesday morning, we're still in there. Typically, that's our canning day. So we can, or if there's any deep cleaning we need to do, whatever's left over from Tuesday, that gets done in the morning. And then Wednesdays, we're open. So Wednesday evenings, we're bartending. Thursdays, again, from in the morning to when we open, it's just stuff around the brewery, whether it's organizing things, putting orders in, going to pick up pizzas and other supplies. So working in the morning, and then evening we bartend. Fridays, another mostly bartending day. Saturdays, completely bartending. We open early for soccer, so I'm there from 8. It usually takes the full Sunday, and then Monday we're back to brewing. So we are busy. We are very busy.
So how many hours did you work as a teacher, and now how many hours, compare that to how many hours you work as a business owner?
I guess contractually, teaching was the 40-hour standard a week. There's definitely a lot more that most teachers do, like outside the classroom, but definitely am working more now than teaching. It's hard to quantify hours. Like, I was averaging in the first 6 months, I know that averaging about 37 hours of bartending a week, and that's not including the two Monday Tuesday thing, yeah. Right? It's cooled off a little bit now because we are hiring more people, and we're scheduling out some bartending. But we definitely, me and my brother, are working a lot, right? But I think what sets it apart, or why we're able to do that, is we're working for ourselves. So it's a different motivation for us, where that, as opposed to say a normal 9 to 5 job, even with teaching, the harder you work, it's amazing. Like you're putting out a better product, but you're not working for yourself. And we know that, hey, the harder we work for this brewery, the more we put into it, the more we're gonna get out of it. And it's for ourselves, which I think helps a little bit. Definitely still trying to find some balance, but we knew in the especially first year, it was gonna be a grind. Like we knew going into it, we planned for it. We knew that if we get through this first 2 years, that and then set us up for success in the future, we're going to have a little bit more flexibility. And I think we're getting close to that point. We're not fully out of that grind mode yet, definitely not. But at least we're at the point now where we can hire people. And that was another huge step. Like, whoa, we are a business that is now going to be an employer for other people. We can take a step back from some of that bartending and now expand our roles in the other aspects of the brewery. So my brother can focus on making more beer because we're growing. I can focus on planning more events and more marketing because we're growing. And that has been an awesome thing in the past month. That's been new to us.
We always hear that working with family is difficult. How do you and your brother handle disputes when it comes to issues?
Yeah, I think with any business, and there's definitely truth to, it's hard. It's not always easy. It's not always, rainbows and butterflies working with family. For us, being a family business, we are very entwined with business and family because we have me and my brother who are the owners and our 2 wives. And then we have currently, or what we have been for the past 7 months, our 2 employees are my little brother and his wife, my sister-in-law. So it's very tight knit team that we have. I think so. Going along with that, treating the business as a business and not just a family, passion project. You need to set some standards and some roles and expectations for each other. And one thing that we did that I'm really happy we did before we had opened was kind of set the structure for the business up. We weren't naive in thinking that, hey, let's just wing it and let's see what happens, right? We had planned on it, hoping that on most things we agree, which we do, right? Most things run great. But in the event that, hey, we have a disagreement about something, we do have an operating agreement, which we had drafted up with the help of an attorney before opening. And that we have as a backup. We've never gotten to the point where we needed to use that. But, just having that structure, I think, is important for any business, whether it's with family or with an unrelated business partner. You need to have things written down that you can go back and as a team sit down and look at what you had agreed upon before. So for us, we kind of split front of house, back of house. So I handle most of the front of house tasks and roles, and my brother handles most of the back of house, the brewing, that kind of stuff. So with these roles, we kind of take the lead. So if there's a disagreement, say on brewing or what styles or what we need to do for that back of house stuff, my brother in the end typically will defer to him, right? We can give advice, give input, talk it through, but in the end, he's the one who has a say on, what we brew and that kind of stuff. And for me, it's similarly like pricing. If we are unsure of how to price something, I'm the one that is running the numbers all the time, and I see different patterns and trends. I have more data than he typically looks at in a week, so I would take the final say on that one. But I would say that's the best way and what's been important for us is defining roles and expectations on the front end, so that if we ever come across something that we have a disagreement about, we defer to what we had agreed upon before the disagreement came upon.
How, with you having only 2 employees, how do you pay yourself? How do you and your brother determine your wage?
Yeah, so we are lucky enough to have 2 amazing wives that are very supportive of us, and they are still working as nurses, which helped us out a lot, at least the burden of finances for our personal families. So what we have decided is that we are taking now more distributions than we initially had. So in the first 6 months, we basically weren't paying ourselves at all. Everything that profit the business made was going back to pay off debts. And still, we're at a point where the majority of our profits are going to pay off debts. But right now, we are doing guaranteed distributions. So we pay ourselves very minimally monthly. And most of our profits right now are still going back in to pay off, credit card debt, pay off loans, and everything like that. So although the business is, the business is doing really well, we're still paying off expenses from the past 3 years. So we are not at a point where we're comfortable paying ourselves a huge salary. Is that the plan? Yes. Right. Once we have our debts paid off, our plan is to have, this be it's an investment, right? So right now we're just putting all the money back in to limit, high interest debt, and it's been working out so far because we're lucky enough to have our wives that are able to also work and provide insurance for our families and things like that.
Now that, speaking of the financing portion, you said eventually your goal is to, is to eventually pay yourself salaries?
Yeah.
When do you know when you're at that point?
I think once debt is paid off. So right now, our business is set up as an LLC. It's a partnership. So our business structure is a little different than what I expect our business structure to be in 5 years. So as a partnership, we have 50% of profits or losses is split evenly between our personal accounts. What I see us in the future structuring our business as would be like an S corp, where the business itself is an entity, and then for tax purposes, it's separate than our personal accounts, and that becomes, I guess, financially beneficial to us once the business is technically making money. So like right now, we're claiming losses from the past 3 years, which is good for our taxes, personal taxes. Once the business is making, once there's no debt to be paid off and the business is making hopefully a substantial amount of money, we want to be able to control that. So when we get to that point where the debt is paid off, the loans are all paid off, no credit card debt, everything is running fairly smoothly, I think that would be the point where, hey, now, we don't want to be responsible for, if hypothetically the business is making, hundreds of thousands of dollars, we don't want to have to pay that on our personal taxes. So that stays in the separate business account, and we decide on what do we feel is fair for our salaries at that point. But I think we're still definitely a few years away from that, because right now and in the foreseeable future, in the 5-year plan, it's hey, this is still grind mode. Let's pay off debt and let's get to the realization of our investment sooner rather than later.
Gotcha. Now, when we're discussing the finance portion of it, what was the process of acquiring funding?
It was a fun process. So our situation may be a little different than future businesses. We decided to open a brewery right in the middle of COVID, right in the middle of lockdown 2020, which definitely some pros and cons to that. One of the cons, though, was the hesitation from large banks to loan money to a service industry business. So when coming into 2020, so we had the whole summer leading up to before we bought the building, right? So it was the heart of COVID. We luckily we were able to work with. We had a financial advisor and we had an accountant that kind of helped guide us through this process. I also had some schooling that helped as well. But securing financing was one of the hardest things to opening the business. Especially at the time that we did. We had taken our business plan, which I had created. I went to school for craft brewing in Denver, and I had some business classes that I was able to work on a business plan. So we had a in-depth, detailed business plan, which a lot of banks, after talking to them, we had sat in tons of meetings that year leading up to actually securing financing, where they were very impressed with the business plan, and they liked all the planning that went into it. But because of the times, they weren't keen on lending large sums of money to a couple brothers that were teachers that had not worked in the industry, and it was a high risk time for the banks, which I get. But luckily, we were able to find financing like in the 11th hour. So we had put in our bid, or we had a accepted offer for the property, and we had to close in the February of 2021, and we were literally working up until closing day to make sure that our financing was secured. And luckily, we were able to do that through WBIC, which is a WWBIC, which is an awesome resource for entrepreneurs. They hooked us up with the majority of our financing, and they were kind of came in right at the last second, and we were able to secure that. And then also the city of West Dallas was also able to help us a little bit, which was awesome, and helping us with some forgivable loans and another separate loan to help us make sure that we got open. So that's kind of support that we never would have expected going into it, but that the city, that's how much the city was supporting the small businesses that they were able to offer just a small and relatively small chunk, but it definitely helped to have that in the very beginning for our financing. But securing financing, you just got to be ready for. Make sure you have the business plan. Make sure even before we did the business plan, I did a feasibility study. So in the feasibility study, I looked at the target markets that we wanted, and for each location, I would make sure to collect certain data, like what's the median income, what is the average age, what is what's the population in a 5-mile radius, 2-mile radius, 20-mile radius, especially for us being important that we're going to be small neighborhood brewery. I think that was impressive to people looking to give us finances. You can't just go into it hoping somebody's going to give you money because they believe in you, right? You have to do a lot of work in the front end and impress them. Basically, that's what it was. We were, hey, I have this, or at the time, everybody wanted to see a COVID protocol, right? Which is not something I had expected, going into opening a brewery, but I have 2 pages on what would happen if there's a pandemic again that closes down a business, right? We have a plan for that in our business plan. We had our 5-year plan. We had, with the help of our financial advisor, we had created 1-year, 5-year, 10-year financial projections that we've actually have been fairly accurate. We've exceeded in our early stages, but you can't just, the more research you do, the better chance you'll have for getting the financing. That's, I guess, the long story short.
So is there, I guess, is there a certain amount that you recommend someone that was in your position, amount of money to save, or is it just about being prepared in order to get that funding? So doing the back end work and all the research prior to doing that.
Yeah, for us, it was important to buy the building, especially when we actually were opening. It was, during lockdown COVID, and this was a pro of opening during COVID, because regardless of if we had to shut down, if this ever would happen again, we had a real estate investment that we were paying into a mortgage as opposed to paying a lease. So I think that was a pro. So what we wanted to make sure that we saved was at least the down payment and a chunk for the actual real estate. So that's what we did. And then we financed out for construction, equipment, and then we did have a mortgage on the actual building. But we made sure, at least for us, it was important to have the down payment and just at least some seed money, so that if everyday expenses come up, we have this much money in the bank. But that was the biggest thing for saving wise for us, right? We wanted to make sure we owned the building, so that was what we saved for.
What are some expenses that occurred that you weren't expecting?
I feel like we did some pretty good preparation, but definitely the whole construction process, and you hear it all the time when you're going through it. They take whatever you think it's going to cost and times it by 3, right? That is very true. So expenses that we did not expect. So we had gotten several bids from contractors for the build out, and ranging a huge range, right? So again, if you're doing anything with contractors, get as many bids as you can, because we had some that went from $150,000 to $500,000 for the same relative project. And what we did not, I guess, expect is that having those bids included, the actual building itself, but then you have to think about, hey, what about the things that I wasn't thinking about before, laying concrete for a wheelchair ramp that is required to have an occupancy permit by the city, making it ADA accessible. So even things like a little stoop and I forgot what the requirements were for a cement ramp in the back patio, but that could cost like 10 grand. And then you have to think about, okay, what else? Well, per building code, you need to have, certain materials lining certain walls and things like that. So definitely prepare for the unexpected by following that rule of, hey, whatever you think is going to cost, times it by 3. And that way you're not going to be in shock when you have, a $50,000 bill for, we had to put steel beams into our brewery that we were not expecting. And steel is not cheap. And you had to wait a long time for the steel. Like, these are the things that just pop up. You're like, whoa. Which is a reason also why we show off all that stuff. We have our steel beams exposed in our brew house because those are expensive.
Yeah, and, right. You got to show it off.
Yeah. But yeah.
Can you, I want to get into your 5-year plan.
Mm-hmm.
What is, I guess, how important is that plan, and how do you track that progress? So can you start from year 1 and where you see yourself in year 5?
Yeah. So like I said, with the prep work that we did with the business plan, we created this 5-year plan of where we had expected to be and where we want to be in 5 years. we've definitely pivoted at points, right?
Right.
But it's good that I'm very happy, and I think we're all happy that we set our goals. They changed a little bit, but as with owning a business, like we're learning new stuff all the time, so we pivot. But creating that 5-year plan, we knew in the first year is all about, hey, let's get through this year, let's survive, let's catch our breath, let's focus on figuring out a day-to-day schedule and making sure that this brewery makes it the first year. So that's still, we're in that first year, but I think we've exceeded expectations of where we would be in the first year. So we're kind of already creeping into year 2, 3. Year 1 was going to be strictly taproom sales. We're going to brew just smaller batches of beer. We're going to make sure that we staff it ourselves and we aren't paying employees, no payroll, and making sure everything's just going back into the brewery. Here we are now 9.5 months later, so not even a year, and we're at the point where our expectation was year 2, 3, we're hiring employees and we're giving up some of those bartending roles to expand our growth. And so this is what I'm talking about, with the being flexible and pivoting. We're at the point where we thought we'd be in 2 to 3 years from now, where we're looking at expanding marketing. We're trying to get into we're brewing bigger batches. This week we just brewed our biggest batch of beer ever, which is about 3 times as much beer that we were brewing day 1. So we're already expanding our capacity of beer threefold. We're hiring employees. We are looking at expanding our events already. So our off-site, off-premise events like beer gardens, farmers markets, festivals, things like that. Things that we did not think we were going to be at, for the first 1.5 years. We're already looking forward to the summer, really amping it up.
Was that year 2, year 3?
That was year 2. Yep. Year 2, we're already creating as much beer as we had expected to be year 2.
Really?
Yeah. We exceeded our projections for sales in the tap room and continue to see growth in taproom sales, which is, me and my brother were talking about this today. Like it's blowing our mind that, hey, every weekend we have a new norm, or our standard is a little higher for what we're bringing in each weekend. And it's an awesome problem to have.
Right.
We're getting busier, right? So yeah, year 2, we're already at year 2 for capacity wise, but that also, we had set goals for our starting in January. Our 6-month goal was that we were going to start selling some kegs off to some tap rooms around the area for marketing purposes, because we don't make a whole lot of money selling kegs out to bars or tap rooms. It's more for marketing. January, we had expected to get to 5 tap rooms each month, but because of our increase in sales, we haven't been able to brew enough beer to do that. So if goals wise, we're still in that first phase where we're trying to maximize taproom sales. So that's kind of what I'm talking about with the change, right? So our goals, first, we want to maximize taproom sales because that's the best profit margins. Then we want to do off-site sales, which we're, part of that phase 2. In the summer, we're expanding beer gardens. We're doing farmers markets, that kind of stuff, because we can sell for retail prices, so save margins. And then once we've maxed out that, then we have the tap rooms and satellite, potential satellite locations. But that's kind of where our new goal that we've made for ourselves in year 2, 3 is to kind of push that off. We're going to make enough beer, maximize out of tap room, maximize off-site premise sales, and then get into other tap rooms. And then year 4, 5, our new goal, because we weren't expecting to be here that quickly, would be to second possible location, permanent offsite, and then also get into some of our own packaging. So we never wanted to be a brewery that is solely dependent on packaging and being in liquor stores, that kind of stuff like that. But we do see a benefit of, once we're established, having this marketing benefit. And then if we have the capacity and we're brewing enough beer to do so, packaging in year 4 or 5. But we definitely have financial goals in our 5-year plan, and we have, I guess, physical space goals as well.
What's your process of getting into other tap rooms? Are you approaching the owners?
As of right now, we've been approached by people to get our beer, and we've been unable to fulfill that as of right now. So we've had a decline. A lot of people have come in and asked for our beer.
Really? So you're not, usually what would happen is you're going to go to other people and try to advertise it, but they're approaching you.
Yes. Wow. That's where we're at the point right now. And I expect that to change, when we're actually doing the 5 tap rooms a month, because we're going to have to go out there. We're going to have to find accounts that will take our beer. But right now, because we're very limited distribution wise, this past week, we're at 2 different tap rooms. But we just don't have enough beer to sell out, because we're making more money selling it in the tap room. So eventually, yes, we will have to. That will be when another expansion of our roles. That it would be nice to have bartending to take the load off of the evenings, where we're able to actually go and network and check out these tap rooms, find cool space, and say, hey, this kind of fits our market. Let's see if we can get our beer here, so that we can pull some of that crowd into our brewery.
How often are you revisiting this plan to make sure that you're staying on track?
We almost daily. I do check, progression of finances. I do monthly reviews on where we are as financing. So let's look at expenses. Let's look at how much actual net profit we're making. I do. That's more, I guess, just me checking progress. I also make quarterly. I do quarterly reviews with our accountant, so we can see, hey, compared to we haven't gotten a full fiscal year under our belts yet, but we can eventually look at quarterly reviews, say, hey, here's where we are year 2 compared to year 1. So I do that with an accountant, but the other 2, that's what I'm doing on Mondays. I'm checking sales for the week. I'm checking, hey, Sundays sales have increased by 10%. Thursdays are our slow days. So what can we do to amp up our Thursdays? So let's plan an event for Thursdays. That kind of thing is, it's kind of what I do on Mondays, and review our goals in general and where we want to be.
What's the profit difference between selling what would you call it, a barrel?
Yeah.
In-house?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I'm sorry, a keg in-house versus having another tap room?
Yeah. So it depends on the size. We do mostly half barrels, which is 15 gallons of beer. If we were to take that same keg and sell it in the tap room, generally, this is different with different styles, but a general number for us would be about $900 to $1,000 for a keg. If we were to sell that keg to a tap room or a bar or something like that, we generally would sell or make about $200 on it. So huge advantage to selling it in the tap room, which is why we want to maximize tap room sales. And then after that, our own retail, where we at Beer Garden selling it for by the pint, as opposed to wholesale.
When I wanted to transition into marketing, when you're looking at how much money do you invest into marketing?
Right now we don't invest very much at all. So most of the marketing is still coming from word of mouth. We're building our social media following. But yeah, it's very limited. What's increased in this, I think helped increase sales since January, is that we worked with Pub Pass and Real Pass, which are two, I guess, little booklets where people get, coupons for buy one beer, get one free, or free beer, which had no monetary cost to us. It was all, hey, can we put you in this book? It's going to bring people in, but you have to give them a free beer. So we're basically paying for marketing and beer, which for us is a good cost.
Right.
So that's been the extent of our marketing, is around our social media, word of mouth, and the Real Pass craft and the Pub Pass as of now. We also just started being a verified account on Untapped. So we're slowly exploring some other options with marketing as well. But like I said, we're struggling to keep up with the beer for taproom sales as is. So, hey, once we think we've plateaued and met our goal, then we look for the next level of marketing. So that's where I think the taprooms and other things will come in once we have enough beer to expand to that outlet.
So would you say your marketing is more just rather than like creating commercials or things of that nature, you want to advertise through your beer?
Yes. So yeah, not doing a whole lot of commercials, although we just did one promo video that we had.
Nice.
But most of it's social media posts, staying active, posting new beers, events. Events have been huge for us. So, getting people in for the first time, whether it's through, we just did a paint and sip last week. So we had an art teacher who does private events that, leads people through painting pictures. We had that last week. We have done live music, things like that, which just pulls people in. And then they bring a friend, they do, it's mostly word of mouth. But I think what we do in marketing or for the social media presence is mostly about new beers, events, here's what's happening, and staying consistent with those. I do a lot of, so being that this is my first time ever doing this, I try to mimic a lot of other breweries and other similar businesses and what they do, because hey, why reinvent the wheel? Let's do what's working, right? So that's kind of where we're at with marketing.
Where was another brewery that you looked at that you helped influence what you do?
Oh man, that's a lot. Even just I follow all the Milwaukee breweries on Instagram and things like that. So I see, and a lot of breweries do very similar posts. I look at Third Space, which is one of our favorites. 1840 Ope, which is another brewery that opened in West Dallas about the same time as us. Station 6 is a cocktail bar that's in West Dallas. It's very kind of a similar vibes to our neighborhood brewery vibes. But it's just I'm following tons of accounts that are very similar to us. So I wouldn't pinpoint just one, because I get a lot of ideas from everyone else, or even ones that I just go to as a customer. Like I see something that I really like and like, oh, that's pretty cool. Wonder if we could do something similar to that at our place.
I know when we spoke a couple of weeks ago, you said that you don't really look at the OPE or the other competition as competitors. You look at it more as collaborators.
Oh yeah. Yeah. It's, I think that's, as far as what I've seen, kind of the general consensus in the brewing industry is that no one's out to get each other. It's how can we help each other out? And that's why I think you see so many collaboration beers and, people like for me, for instance, if I have off on a Sunday, I'm going to other breweries because I love to go to other breweries, right? So you're supporting other breweries in that sense, but also just having, for West Dallas, now we have 2 other breweries. It's kind of made West Dallas a craft beer place. So people seek out breweries as destinations. It's not like a normal bar where, hey, there's a bar, let's go in there. People will plan their day around craft beer. So having the other breweries in, walking distance or a short drive is actually a pull, which I think almost all breweries that I know have embraced. So there's definitely a point of saturation, but Milwaukee is not even, as far as what I think, I don't think we're even close to being near that.
What were your thoughts on the West Stallion? Is it West Stallion?
West Stallion.
Yeah. What was your thoughts on them closing after 5 years?
Kind of a same thing. It kind of sucked for us. I mean, first, one less brewery that we get to go to.
Mm-hmm.
But we loved having, the more breweries in the area. So it was super unfortunate that they weren't able to keep that, physical space. I know they opened a new location in Marinette, so I think their focus went up north.
Okay.
But yeah, so it wasn't like it was more kind of a bummer for us that we lost a brewery in the area. So we're hoping that something similar to that will come in, or something like some craft beverage, whether it's wine or a tap room or something, will fill that space as well. Because like I said, another brewery or another craft cocktail place or similar clientele that we have, if we get a similar business in that spot, it's going to bring people into the area, which is what we want.
What did you learn from them closing? Anything that you took away from that?
I guess I would say we not getting complacent. We're a new brewery, so we're experiencing this growth kind of naturally.
Mm-hmm.
People are still finding out about us, but what's going to happen 5 years from now? So 5 years from now, what are we doing to stay relevant? What are we doing to, either if we're still growing, what are we doing to grow? What are we doing to maintain business? And I think it just kind of goes to show that, hey, this grind never really stops. It just changes. So in 5 years from now, what are we doing to keep perspective fresh? What are we doing to keep it going strong?
Alrighty. Has networking helped? How has networking helped sustain the position that you're in now?
I think for us, the biggest part of networking for us has been learning. That's been the biggest benefit for us. Being two teachers new into this entirely new career industry. It's been amazing, the support and help that we've had from people that have been in our shoes for a lot longer than we have, right? So most of our networking has happened in our tap room, because we've been there so much, but we have that support. Like, same thing that I was saying, that we go to other breweries, those people are doing the same thing. They're supporting other small businesses. They're, coming in and asking, hey, do you have any questions for anything? We're here to help, that kind of thing. But for us, we built these relationships with a lot of people in the brewing industry in Milwaukee, but not even in just the brewing industry, the small business community of West Allis. We have a lot of, restaurant owners that come in. We have City Hall workers that come in from across the street, because we're across the street from City Hall. We made a lot of really cool connections with even like food trucks and things like that. People that own complementary businesses that, we're hoping to work with in the future, just from coming in and talking in the tap room. And so for what we're doing for networking now that we're getting a little bit more time off bartending, is we're starting our own collaboration beers. So in the next few months, we have 3 dates set up that we're brewing with other people in the industry. So we're doing one with Component Beer, We're doing one with Youngblood in Madison, and then we're doing one with Ope for West Dallas.
Nice.
So we're getting to the point where, hey, now we're the ones that we have a little bit of experience. We've caught our breath. So we're able to go out and and see these other businesses and see what they're doing right and talk to them at their places, which in the past 9 months has been more of they've come in and, kind of offered support just in that way, which has been awesome. And we've tried to soak in as much as we can from others, just advice on day-to-day stuff. So not even like, hey, how do you price a keg? Because we never done that before. Like,
right.
What's an appropriate cost for a keg? And they've been super helpful with that kind of thing. Or what's the process that you go through for hiring? How do you staff people on holidays? Are we going to be busy? Are we not going to be busy? So I think for us, that's been the biggest thing and biggest help is just getting just as much information as we can from people that have done this or similarly gone through a situation like we have.
Do you have a mentor?
I wouldn't say that I have a single mentor, but kind of like what I was saying, a lot of what we base our decisions off of in the first year is from talking to people that have done this in the industry. So we have friends now that, for instance, Ope, the guys who run Ope, that's a much bigger enterprise. It's a lot bigger project, but I know Kyle at Ope was a brewer at Explorium and, has tons of years in the industry under his belt. I have our friend Miles at Station 6 who has been operating, working in the brewing industry for a long time. So just having them, that we can ask questions about anything to, that's kind of, I guess, as closest to what we call a mentor.
What advice do you have for someone that's on the edge of, that's thinking about starting a new business, but scared to because of the risk?
Yeah, you just got to go for it. I mean, you have to speak it into existence. We did that for 6 years. Pretty sure people probably got tired. Yeah, you're not going to open a brewery. We did have people I know that we worked with that kind of thought we were just kidding. Like when we were teaching, oh yeah, you guys can open the brewery. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And then we stuck with it. We took the steps. We didn't try to do it overnight, right? That's one piece of advice. Do it right. So make a plan and follow the proper steps. Like for us, opening the brewery didn't start in 2020. It started from when we watched that Kid President video. And that summer we did an internship in Colorado. Me and my brother did together at a brewery. The summer after that, I moved out to Colorado and I went to school in Denver to get my craft brewing certification so that we had some sort of credentials for financing. And then, we all that while we were brewing beer and my brother was working on recipes, entering competitions, things like that. So it's definitely not something you do on a whim. You have to just go for it. And if you do the prep work and you believe in yourself, then you're going to be successful. And that's kind of why we were I guess we probably scared my parents a lot by saying, we're going to, and probably our wives, but we're going to do this full time. It's going to work out, and it has so far, but it's a scary thing, when you're giving up a career, like teaching, for instance. We had done it for 12 years. We were good at teachers. That was a profession that we knew. We're giving up insurance, a guaranteed salary, but that's what you have to do. You got to just jump in and do it.
Well, Dan, I appreciate your time and I wish you and your business much success. Thank you for taking the time to sit down with me today. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, appreciate the time. Thanks.